Greetings to our Jakes Divinity School family and friends. It is with sincere enthusiasm that I welcome you to a truly special occasion, the virtual Chancellor's Masterclass, featuring JDS Chancellor and founder Bishop T.D. Jakes alongside the acclaimed Dr. Dennis Kimbro. Whether you are a committed student and supporter of Jakes Divinity School, a leader in ministry, or a visionary in the marketplace, your presence with us tonight affirms the vibrant tapestry of faith, intellect, and innovation that defines our greater community. This masterclass is much more than a gathering. It is a purposeful space for transformative dialogue. As Bishop Jakes and Dr. Kimbro engage in conversation, they will explore topics that are not only relevant, but also deeply enlightening for those called to lead in a rapidly changing world. Their unique perspectives, rooted in lived experience and proven strategy, promise to enrich our understanding and provoke the kind of critical thinking that moves leaders from aspiration to action, whether in the church, the marketplace, or society at large. At Jakes Divinity School, we hold a firm belief in the power of innovative leadership. Our faith shapes the work that we do and inspires us to make a difference in every sphere of influence we occupy. This masterclass is designed to equip you with insights and strategies that trailblazing leaders have embraced, wisdom that we hope will inspire you to achieve greater impact and lasting successes in your own journey. Formation at Jakes Divinity School is multidimensional and holistic. We are committed to nurturing not only spiritual and intellectual growth, but also social and vocational development. The experience here is transformative, shaping leaders who are prepared to serve the church, influence the marketplace, and positively affect society as a whole. Before we immerse ourselves in the rich conversation between Chancellor Jakes and Dr. Kimbro, it is my great privilege to share the heart of JDS with you, our students. Their voices and stories embody the very essence of our mission and the promise of what is possible when faith and leadership unite. May you be inspired by today's masterclass, and may you glean wisdom and strategies that will help you become all that God has destined for you to be. May God richly bless you, and may you enjoy this experience.
My JDS education has put me in expert lane, a lane I knew nothing about before.
It was very hard, but at the same time, it was also helping me to grow.
It allowed me to learn that there was nothing that I could not do, but more importantly, it also helped me to understand what was inside of me.
Jakes Divinity School has helped me to be able to be who I am today. I am ready to take the world because of what Jakes Divinity School has done to impact my life and in my education.
And it is because of this school, I can truly say I'm a scholar now.
It has really impacted my life in wanting me to go further. And so this is just the beginning. I'm excited to be able to reach this milestone and to go further.
And I encourage anybody who is considering this type of support, everything that you need to be equipped for the call, join this program.
I am overwhelmed right now to be a leader within Jakes Divinity School, and I feel blessed to be a part of so many amazing students who we are helping to form as innovative leaders in the ministry and in society.
The time is now for this next generation to rise up.
Inspiring leaders, advancing the kingdom, impacting the world. Jakes Divinity School.
Dr. Dennis Kimbro is an educator, New York Times best-selling author, and expert on leadership, wealth, and success. With decades of experience as both a researcher and a practitioner, he has guided countless individuals and organizations to develop strategies for peak performance and meaningful growth. Today, he joins Chancellor T.D. Jakes for a masterclass conversation, sharing insights and principles that inspire leadership, excellence, and personal impact. Please welcome Dr. Dennis Kimbro in conversation with Chancellor T.D. Jakes.
Hello, everybody. I am so excited and delighted to have one of the greatest minds of our generation, Dr. Dennis Kimbro, who is currently a professor at Clark Atlanta University, a major force to be reckoned with, has been on the scene for years, well-studied, well-educated, well-equipped, and very passionate about the future as well as understanding the past from which we've come in order to maximize our opportunities and maximize our life. Dr. Kimbro, I welcome you. I'm glad to have you here. I want to start out by saying times aren't like times we were living in. We've got AI, we've got currency models that are changing before us every day as we go into cyber currency and Bitcoin and so forth and so on. We've got shifting trends. What are some of the most vital institutions for empowerment given the times that we are living in today? And what should we be looking for and striving toward for the times we're in today?
Well, that's a great question, and I can certainly appreciate it as a speaker, a writer, a researcher, and an educator. At the top of the list, Bishop, it is still education. And I know that as a race, Black America has made distinctive gains in the last 10 or 15 years. When you look at our high school levels, we are up around the mid-80s. But the fact of the matter is, who else is in the classroom with us? And we're being compared to Asian Americans, East Indian Americans, certainly white Americans, and the like. And when you throw that up against the wall, we still have a lot of work to do. Not that we're inferior, not that we're not equal to the task or can meet the moment, but there is a one-to-one correlation between education and income. And that is the caveat. So you look at the groups that hold the highest level of education, in this particular case, Bishop, it's Asian Americans. The average Asian household income is anywhere between $116,000 and $120,000 a year, compared to Black household income, which is anywhere between $45,000 and $55,000. So we have work to do. And education is not only the key, but education will lead to other areas of opportunities, whether that's in social service, whether that's in corporate America, whether that's closing the digital divide. So let's take these in order and let's focus on education first. But that's a great question.
When you think about education being the primary result of poor economics, how do we handle that situation when we got where we are two adults in the household, we've got both of them working, we don't seem to be able to get out of the ditch, the students can't get the support that they need, the parents are overwhelmed and often underpaid, and can you explain a little bit how economics change the dynamics in the home and change the dynamics in a cultural aspect and causes people not to perform at their highest potentials in college? Is it the school? Is it the taxes? Is it the parents not having availability to support the kids? What exactly and specifically do you see the major challenges are for people who are underserved?
Well, it's all of the above, and that's not the easy way out I'm taking. And let me just say today is a memorable moment because we lost, I told my students, I had class today, that we lost the paragon of excellence, and that's in Reverend Jesse Jackson. I had an opportunity to interview him twice, and I just ever so briefly tell his story in one of my books. But what was Jesse's real claim to fame? You know, we talk about boycotting and we talk about, galvanizing our resources. But you go back when he was on the scene, arguably the group and the culture and the gender that made the greatest gains while Jesse was a force to deal with was white women. Okay, so here I am, I'm 75 years old, and I was a junior in high school when white women could obtain a credit card on their own signature. They couldn't obtain a credit card on their own signature. They had to use either their husband or a male. In that particular case, it was the father. When I was a junior in high school, white women couldn't secure a mortgage on just their signature alone. They had to do it again with the male partner, their husband or the father. But here came Jesse Jackson, and he changed the dynamic. So when I say it's all of the above, yes, it is education. Yes, it is the family unit, preferably maintenance of the family unit, both husband, both father and mother. And yes, it is all of the above, making sure that we have public policies in order that address these concerns. And today we don't have those. So, just recognize the problem. But whatever the problem is, Bishop, the biggest mistake we will ever make in life is to think that somebody else signs our paycheck. The biggest mistake we'll ever make in life is to, think that somebody else can solve our problems. And what did Jesse Jackson tell me? He said, you may not be responsible for getting knocked down, but you're certainly responsible for getting back up. So you don't deny your problems, you transcend your problems by addressing them. Education is one, mindset change is the other, and number two, know that whatever the challenges are, they are not insurmountable.
To be sure, we have lost an icon, as you have said, that has left an indelible impression on society, not only here in America, but around the world. In many ways, it has left us aghast, recognizing the great loss that we have, because we don't see succession planning. We don't know that there will ever be another Reverend Jesse Jackson. I doubt it. And when we look at the times in which we live in today, we went from affirmative action to DEI, and many people thought that that would only affect African Americans, but that is not true. It affected women who were getting contracts and upward mobility. It affected other minorities in detrimental ways, and the fallout has caused people to lose homes, to lose jobs, to lose opportunities, to lose influence and impact everywhere from corporate America to Hollywood. It did affect Black communities in detrimental ways, and we have certainly been damaged by that. There's no doubt, there is absolutely no doubt how much of it is deteriorating the family structure. More people are getting divorced over economic pressures than there are adultery or anything else. Where there's two incomes, for example, and one mortgage, we deduct the amount of bills and expenses that are eating away at the forces and the income that we do have left. We got separate mortgages. We've got separate bills to pay. How much of that is eating away at our income flexibility and affecting our students detrimentally as well as our overall well-being?
Well, it's eating a lot away. And I look at my particular situation. We bought the house that I'm in. You're seated in my study right now. We bought this house in 1984. When Bishop, we bought this house in 1984 for $106,000, and our mortgage with everything was barely $800 a month. But when I said at the opening of this podcast that education is the key, Black America, we got to wrap our minds around this, that the higher the education, the higher the household income, and the higher the household income, the more likely that both, mother and father, husband and wife will be there. There is a one-to-one correlation between household income and marriage rates. Those groups that have the highest, household income have the highest marriage rates. And who has the highest marriage rates right now? East Indians and Arab Americans. I mean, we're talking almost 94%. Now, we might say that is out of our reach, but back when I was a young tad, back in the 1950s and the 1960s, Black America had the highest marriage rates, and we had the highest church attendance. And what does the Census Bureau do when they look at marriage rates and church attendance? They judge that on conservative behavior. When I was coming up, no group was more conservative than Black America simply because of our church attendance and simply because of our marriage rates. Well, that's when we made the greatest gains, was in the 1950s and the 1960s, before we even had those social policies. Now, here's the good news, Bishop. If we did it before, we can certainly do it again. And how do we do that? By mindset. And I got to take a biblical phrase here. The greatest gift your Lord and Savior has ever given us is the ability to change our mind. You know, when we look at wealth, all wealth is a resource, but it won't do you any good. It's not the amount of money you earn. It's the amount of money that you keep. And the greatest problem that we hold as a race is not, how much we earn, it's what we do with our money. When you look at Black America against all the countries that belong to the United Nations, and right now, there are 195 countries in the world. All but 30 belong to the United Nations. You got about 160 countries that belong to the UN. When you look at wealth, and you plot Black America against those 160, we are number 16 in terms of wealth. So our problem is not wealth. Our problem is the mindset to handle that wealth. Bishop, in 1897, our most prolific scholar, W.B. Du Bois, wrote a book called The Negro in Business in 1897. You get a copy of that book, and that book is more than 800 pages long. I'm not telling you to read the entire book. I'm just telling you to read the first 30 pages. Because in the first 30 pages, he has 3 quotes that if we committed to those 3 quotes, it would make all the difference in our communities right now. Quote number 1 in those first 30 pages. He said, to be a poor man is hard. But to be a poor race in a land full of dollars, that's the very bottom of hardship. So he has set the pace where our focus needs to be. Number 2, he says the man or woman who won't control his or her finances won't control anything else. Well, what in the world was he talking about? He's saying if you don't care about the money in your pocket, what do you care about Black on Black crime? What do you care about the graduation rates of our children from not only high schools, but colleges? And then number 3, he says, nothing positive will ever occur in a community that fails to circulate its dollars. Those are 3 underpinnings that should be the track on which we run on. And if we would just subscribe to those words and make it our call to action, we would all be the better for it. So don't reinvent the wheel. And certainly, we're looking for a key to a door that's unlocked. All we got to do is push it open.
It's so funny because we have given so much through our Good Soil program, hundreds and thousands of dollars to Black entrepreneurs because they don't often have access to the capital that they need. And we have been able to give grants to some, opportunities to some, education and exposure to some, that they could increase their hiring revenues and start working smarter instead of working harder. Over 94% of Black businesses who have less than 2 employees is detrimental to the scale that we want to see our businesses grow into, that they move away from just being a mom and pop shop to being a source where we can hire some of these people that are losing their jobs. And so our inability to go from sole proprietorships into really being CEOs over companies has been compromised by the times in which we're living in right now. I would challenge that this idea that a lot of it is simply because we have not been exposed to people that think in such a way that they are exposed to the kinds of conversations that we're having right now, creating the kinds of opportunities rather than risking opportunities. Don't you think it's part of it as well that we have exposure along with education, along with economics? Exposure has a lot to do with how we think and how we manage and how we function and how we expect to succeed.
Oh, I completely agree. that entrepreneurial thinking. You don't have to be an entrepreneur, to engage in entrepreneurial thinking. Even corporate America, as I tell my students, they want somebody who thinks outside of the box. Now, Bishop, there is nothing wrong with being a sole proprietor, but you got to understand what track you're running on. There is a huge difference between entrepreneurship and sole proprietorship. I mean, what do sole proprietors and what do small business owners do? Well, they run small businesses. Well, what do entrepreneurs do? Well, entrepreneurs literally have the power to change the world. And you know what track you're running on because there are 5 different boxes. All of my students say, well, Dr. Kimbro, I don't want to go in corporate America. I want to be an entrepreneur. I said, okay, there are 5 boxes that you have got to check in order for entrepreneurship. What is the first box? Well, you got to come up with an idea. You've got to come up with an idea. And with that idea comes innovation and creativity. Well, what in the world does that mean? Innovation is the ability to execute an idea. And what is creativity? Creativity means not only the idea to see down the street. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to be able to see around the corner. Don't tell me all the trends that you can spot. Tell me the trends that are going to be started as soon as I leave this building. So number 1, you got to come up with the idea. Number 2, you got to come up with the business model. Now, both Martin Luther King and Steve Jobs used the same business model to achieve their goals and objectives. And what was that business model? That business model pinned on only 3 questions. Number 1, tell me where we are. Number 2, tell me where we can be. And number 3, make it that way. Dr. King, tell me where we are. Well, this country wrote the black man a check that came back marked insufficient funds. Okay. Steve Jobs, tell me where we are. Well, if you're like me, you got 50 million different electronic components on you. Don't you wish that you could narrow them down to one component? Okay. Question number 2, tell me where we can be. Dr. King, well, they gave us a check marked insufficient funds, but I had a dream that my 4 children would be measured by, the content of the character rather than the color of the skin. Steve Jobs, tell me where we can be. Yeah, you got all these electronic devices, but I called my designers and system engineers into my office and I told them to narrow them down to one device. And then last but not least, make it that way. Dr. King, make it that way. My 4 children will be judged on the content of the character versus the color of the skin. Make it that way. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Steve Jobs, make it that way. Well, my system engineers took all these devices, placed them on one device. April 2007, ladies and gentlemen, introducing the iPhone. So you have got to come up with a business model. Number 3, access to capital. Now, Bishop, this is where both black sole proprietors and would-be entrepreneurs, they lose their way. They think that access to capital is the number 1 problem. It isn't the number 1 problem. The number 1 problem in black businesses is collaboration, is leadership, is taking a group of individuals, mold them, shape them, and move them towards, a designed objective. We want to be lone wolves. We want to be Jonathan Living Seagulls. We want to go alone. Well, sometimes it benefits to collaborate, to move together. You want to fly high, fly fast, then fly alone. But if you want to fly far, fly with others. Fly with others. And then last but not least, after you get the business plan, after you get the business model, after you get, the collaborative tools, and after you get the money, then you got to worry about timing. Is this the right time for the idea? And Bishop, you are the excellent example. You have done so much with life, and you have done so much with the limited tools that you have. I remember when I interviewed you and you told me my detractors on Altogether Wrong, the lisp is still there. And you told me I don't care if I had to spit, I don't care if I had to stutter, I don't care if I had to stammer. I had something to say, and I'm going to say it. Well, that's why I wrote the book. Come on, Black America, read the book and read what this man has said. Now is the time. It is always the right time for success. So I hope I answered your question. I went in the circuitous way, but that is mindset. Heart set, health set, soul set, mindset. And what is mindset? It is believing in yourself when no one else will. Now is the time for that belief.
I absolutely agree with everything you said. I just think that when you are running a sole proprietorship, as my father started out in his company with a mop and a bucket and ended up with 52 employees, you spend so much time doing the business that you don't really get to run the business, the accounting, establishing relationships with the bank, making sure that you are in compliance, doing compliance audits and all those sorts of things. You can fry chicken, but that doesn't mean that you can run a chicken shack. You ultimately need somebody to replace the doing of business so that you can get down to the management of business. That's all I'm saying about that. And perhaps AI can step in and be an influence in this way because it helps us not only to hire the right people, but to understand who we need for our businesses to grow and reach their maximum capacity, to understand the books that we need to read, to develop relationships with banks, to put us in a position that we understand, are we in the right location? Have we found geographically the audience that is most apt to appreciate the products that we are aligned with? Geo-targeted marketing is essential. It may not be that you have the wrong product. It may be that you're exposed to the wrong crowd. And all of these culminate in the ability for us to think our business rather than to do our business. And I don't think that has been modeled as fully as it needs to be modeled in our society so that we can think about growing and scaling our businesses to be all that they can be. With AI coming on the scene and us trying to ignore it and maybe casually using it, we don't see it as a tool or extra employee or an advisor that helps us to run HR and supplements many of the areas where we have been deficient in the past. But to be able to produce and develop and make a product that makes them marketable, it's getting wider every day, and AI coming upon us and taking the jobs that we did have and that we normally do, and those jobs are being cycled to other people who can do those jobs. How do we prepare our people to be and to do more than buy electronics and be consumers of electronics, but to do more than use AI, but to use it as a tool and be able to produce and develop and make a product that makes them marketable on stage and face this new frontier with a zeal and a zest that includes us rather than excludes us.
You're exactly right. And there's no need to fear AI. We've had AI before, quote, AI got here.
You're right.
AI is Instagram. AI is TikTok.
You're right.
I mean, anything that can be replicated certainly will be overtaken by AI. But the one idea that AI cannot take, if you do your job just for a paycheck, then you better worry about AI. You know, if you do what you're just told to do and what you're demanded to do, well, what do you get? You get a paycheck. But if you go above and beyond of what you were told to do, well, you get opportunity. And AI cannot tackle and AI cannot usurp opportunity. So you hold the keys in your hand. You have everything you need for success. And just like Napoleon Hill said, when Napoleon Hill wrote his first book, Laws of Success, he came up with 17 to 19 surefire principles to success. Well, over the years, he narrowed that down. He went from 17 to 19 to 13. He went from 13 to 7. And before he died, he only came up with 4. He said, these 4 are the most important. And Bishop, what were the 4? You know, desire, definiteness of purpose. Number 2, mastermind, collaboration. Number 3, going the extra mile. And number 4, faith and belief. So that you're exactly right. If you incorporate those skills, and AI has been here in the past, and AI isn't going anywhere, and there's no need to fear. But when we talk about AI, there's one form of intelligence that's more important than AI. And what is that? It's soul intelligence. And what in the world is soul intelligence? Soul intelligence is based off of feelings. And that's the number one reason why people buy. If you can load in and harp in and hit the sweet spot with your customer with feelings, you don't have to worry about anything else. Dr. Kimbro, why did you buy Under Armour instead of Nike? Well, when I wear Under Armour, I feel athletic. Dr. Kimbro, why did you buy an iPhone instead of Android? Well, when I use my iPhone, I feel entrepreneurial. I feel innovative. You know, I ask my daughters, why did you buy Victoria's Secret instead of something? They tell me when I wear Victoria's Secret, I feel fierce. I feel like I'm in control. Well, that's soul intelligence. When you tap into the feelings of others, and that can never be replaced. So yes, AI will always be here, and AI can be an effective tool. AI can help you grow and develop and scale your business. And what in the world is scale? Scale is taking your business to the highest heights. It's finding those customers who currently aren't using your product or service, but would use your product or service in the future if you made the slightest modification to without increasing operations. Well, that's scaling your business. AI can help you do that. But AI is not the be all and end all. You as an entrepreneur, that's called brand development, will make all the difference in the world.
When you were talking about Apple a while ago, it made me think of Apple was smart enough to develop a family of products that once you bought one of them, you had to buy all of them because they were interactive and integrated. You get inside that circle, and in that ethos, that orbit of Apple products keeps you there for years and years and years, and you seldom find the ability to be able to escape from it. One thing leads to the next thing, connects to the next thing, leads to the next thing, and after a while you're hooked. Whereas we are offering often one thing or one type of product rather than many things that are cohesive enough to create a brand that is full enough to keep us in business and increase our profit margin. And having a wider array of things to go to offer our customers that are consistent and interactive and integrated with the other products that they have bought from us heretofore. But to maximize your time, and I want to go to this particular issue, the declining value of the dollar that we are finding today, and a lot of us are unaware of the depreciating value of the dollar eroding away and eroding away. For those of us who are nearing retirement, or those of us who have savings or 401k plans, you may not have as much money as you thought you have. Do you see that as a temporary thing or as a permanent problem that we're going to have to deal with for years to come?
Well, Bishop, I am a strong proponent of Adam Smith, the godfather of capitalism, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, and that could be either good or bad. You know, you're exactly right when you talk about the dollar. The dollar in the last year has decreased in worth, and that is the problem. That's a problem for those who are trying to save money. That's the problem for 401ks. That's the problem for folks with any type of intrinsic value trying to hold on to that money. But there's pluses and minuses, and the plus of a weaker dollar will make you more competitive abroad because you can lessen the price of your goods and services. But we as a nation have got to take that into our thinking in terms of the strength of a dollar. The strength of the dollar means stability. The strength of the dollar means the foundation is there, that you don't have to look for other sources for intrinsic value. And what are people looking now? They're looking for a fast buck when they see the value of that dollar decreasing. I don't own any crypto, and I don't blame anybody for owning crypto. But I'm a proponent of, all the wealth creators out there, and Warren Buffett certainly stands top of the list. You know, I'm not into speculative investments and the like. I'm not a big fan, certainly at my age, in terms of volatility. I'm more of a conservative investor. Well, crypto, folks are gravitating crypto to make up for that difference in a weak dollar. But in terms of answering your question, they've got to do what I do. You got to take a hard look and manage your portfolio. And everybody has a portfolio in some idea. Yeah. And the average portfolio that we have out there today, Bishop, is basically a four-legged stool. And what are the legs of that stool? Hopefully, number one is home ownership. That is the number one asset in your portfolio. Why? I'm a big proponent. I own stock, but home ownership has surpassed the average Dow Jones and, the average, I could tell you all the mutual funds and money markets in the last, 5, 10, 15 years. So home ownership is one. Number two, of course, your investments, your 401k. Number three, your savings. Always keep some liquidity on hand. And then last but not least, any item out there in terms of intrinsic value. That is your portfolio. Now, people come up to me and say, well, Dr. Kimbro, I don't have investments and I don't have crypto and I don't have savings. Well, yes, you do. You got a paycheck. And that's your first savings. What did W. Clement Stone tell me years ago when I was dead broke? He said, young man, if you can't save 10 to 15% of every dollar you earn, the seeds of greatness aren't in you. You start the process of savings. Now, savings doesn't necessarily believe that you're going to take 10 to 15% out of your, bi-monthly paycheck. No, savings really starts with retiring all debt. Pay yourself first. Bishop, when I wrote my fifth book, The Wealth Choice, and it was a 7-year study, and in the process, through my surveys and through one-on-one interviews, I rubbed shoulders with more than 1,000 Black millionaires. And I had 6 focus groups around the country. And the reason why I had focus groups, I wanted to see how these individuals interact with their peers. And what did I find? I found the 2 rules that Black millionaires always enforce and the 2 questions that they always ask. And what are those rules? And this is what I found in the focus group. Bishop, I'm speaking to the average individual who will watch your podcast. As soon as you get up in the morning, according to these Black millionaires, somebody's making money off of you. As soon as you get up in the morning and your feet hit that cold floor in your home or your apartment, you got to cut the heat on. Well, you got to pay for that heat. Right. You go over to your sink and you got to wash your face. You got to brush your teeth. Well, you got to pay somebody for the water. You got to pay somebody for, the toothpaste and the like. You're hungry? Certainly got to pay for the food. 24/7, 365 days a year. Somebody is making money off of you. So what is the question that Black millionaires ask? Number one question, who's paying you? You've got to find somebody to pay you. And then last but not least, the number one rule that black millionaires always enforce, all right? So who is paying you? The number one rule is don't let anybody pimp your gift. And what do I mean by that? You got to know your self-worth. You've got to know your self-worth. What is your value add? What do you do better than anybody else? You've got to know your area of excellence. And self-worth is exactly that. It is worth. We look at my dear friend John O'Brien says that 50% of poverty is low self-esteem. Just the fact of you believing in yourself. Just the fact when you throw a suit on, the Bible says many are called, but only few are chosen. Well, Bishop, you know this as well as I do. Many are called, but only a few showed up on time. Many are called, but only a handful edited their resume. Many are called, but only 1 or 2 wore business attire. When you take the greatest investment you will ever make is the investment you make on yourself, you're increasing your net worth. And you're increasing, going back to W.B. Du Bois, the money that you have in your pocket. And all of that, I got to harp back. Yes, I'm a big proponent of AI, but to me, soul intelligence is just as important. That is, a part of soul intelligence.
Well, to me, Doctor, there's a sociological factor that hinders us from growing and developing our circle to the point that we're having the kinds of conversations that we need to have. Rather than finding people who complete us, we end up with people who compete with us. Drug dealers hang out with drug dealers. Dentists hang out with other dentists. Doctors hang out with other doctors. And we don't broaden our circle, that we have a wide parameter of people who infuse into us other knowledge and information that causes our influence to be more comprehensive. You are the company that you keep. And one of the things that I think is important about Black millionaires and Black wealth, one, they are exposed to these kinds of conversations that not every Black person or brown person or poor white person are exposed to. These kinds of conversations are vitally important for us to be ultimately successful. And if you value resources, you must understand that relationships are your greatest resource. I don't care how much capital you have. If you don't have the resources of relationships, you are still underfunded, because resources open up the door for income through relationships and connectivity. People do business with people they know and people they like. We're in a nation with the highest GDP in the world. We are still a force to be reckoned with, even in the dismal state we have found ourselves in. We still have a lot to offer and a lot to consider. And it's not lost on me that Africa has the fastest growing GDP economy in the world. And all of that needs to be taken into consideration as we begin to embark upon developing global businesses rather than just community businesses, and broaden the terrain and the possibilities of us becoming more successful. Instead of fighting over small things and insisting that we've got to be ourselves and be a fashion statement in a business climate, you may have to put on a suit. You may have to put on a shirt that you normally wouldn't wear. You may have to put on a tie, but also learn the language that engages the conversations, that opens the door for you to expand yourself. For every dream, for every type of business that you want to go to, it has its own language, it has its own culture, it has its own ethos, and you have to take the time to learn the language and the dress and the style, and the way things are done are not always reflected in a manual, so that you can be a part of the staff and be included in the team in such a way that you can go beyond being locked into an ethnicity, but you can become a community and a part of the culture of the overall organization, because this is your money maker. Your head, your brain, in between your two ears is your money maker. And you don't want to do anything that hinders people from seeing what's in your head because they see what's on your body. Expanding the way you think, to me, is vitally important, and you only get it when you take the time to listen to conversations like this and pick through it and say what you need to say in order to be able to be fluent in the language, even if you have to Google it, even if you have to research it, even if you have to train yourself. What do they mean about that? And what do they mean about this? It's your job to always be a student and always be learning, because the world is continuing to evolve, and every new world you walk into has its own way of doing things. And maybe begin to read W.E. Du Bois and read other people, more contemporary people who are understanding the dynamics of the world that we're living in and the cyber influences that have changed us that W.E. Du Bois didn't get to see, that have taken advantage of what we are doing here today. We have 300,000 women or more who have lost their jobs over a 90-day period with master's degrees. We're going to have to be more innovative and creative if we're going to recreate ourselves in the times we're living in such a way that we are able to compete on and display and be able to be competitive with other people who have abreast and availed themselves of classes that are necessary to keep them influential and relative. Doctors go back to school. Dentists go back to school. They take courses. They pick up training so that they can keep up with the times. And it's important that we not only value the history from which we come, but also are prepared for what is in front of us. There's a lot going on in foreign countries. The GDP, as I said, in Africa is growing. More and more African Americans are moving into Accra and moving into Ghana and moving into Nigeria, moving into South Africa, and they're finding ways to live their lives as things become more difficult in the countries that we're living in. But I think we need to understand and begin to own that and learn about each other. And we can still have our base in America. I love this country. I still believe, in spite of all of its flaws, that it has potential to live up to its highest ideals, even though it has never reached them yet. They are simply ideals that can be resuscitated by bright minds and vibrant spirits that create a commodity that's valuable. Why are we allowing people who don't have our hair, for example, make our weaves? Why are we allowing people who don't have razor bumps make our shaving cream and sell it to us? We need to take control over those things that are common to dark-skinned people everywhere and become influential in producing, manufacturing, and delivering those products. We have an opportunity to integrate and collaborate to create a customer base that makes us a success, viable business, global business. You have to know your consumer. You have to direct opportunities to access your consumer. And you have to target geographical marketing that reaches the people base that has the greatest need and appetite for what you have to offer. And I don't think we put the work in and the study in that's necessary before we launch a business. Is there a need for the business? Am I reduplicating something that's right on the other corner? Sometimes it's not that you're going to have great product. You can have the greatest product in the world, but if you don't get the greatest product in front of the right people and you're trying to sell it to the wrong people, your business could fail, not because you're not good or your product's not good, but you're not finding your target audience.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's the entrepreneurial question. You got to know your demographics, but the entrepreneurial question, who are the individuals who currently aren't using your product or service, but would use your product or service in the future if you made the slightest change or modification too? But Bishop, you hit the proverbial nail on the head when you talk about relationships. Relationships is the currency of the 21st century.
Right.
And what I love about the church, particularly the Black church, that is the only institution where for 20 or 30 minutes during a Sunday sermon, you can have a Black woman, as you mentioned, 300,000 highly educated Black women. You could have a Black woman seated in your pews who has an MBA, who has a degree in engineering, who might be a lawyer, who has her finances in order, seated next to another Black woman who has 2 or 3 kids at home, who isn't educated, who's divorced and the like. And for 20 or 30 minutes during the course of the week, they are seated there. And we have to find a way to connect them for over those 20 or 30 minutes. I don't care if we're introducing each other, if we're shaking hands for a few moments. For one woman to tell another woman, I'm looking for a job, I'm trying to raise my income, I got 2 or 3 folks at home, and the other woman, she reaches in her purse, so she pulls out a cell phone, she texts her a phone number, girlfriend, that's no problem, call this number Monday morning, and that'll solve all your problems, tell you that I sent you there. That's the currency, that's the relationships, that's the speed. That's the speed that wealth demands today. And we have got to do a better job connecting with each other outside of a cell phone, outside of a text message, outside of an email. I tell my students all the time, what is the one question that Gen Z never asked? And they said, Dr. Kimbro, what are you talking about? I said, the one question that you guys never ask is, how is your day going? Because when you ask somebody, how is your day going, you're not going to be bent down texting while you're listening to somebody. You're going to look somebody in the eye and they're going to talk to you to tell them what's going on in their life. So we've got to take advantage and we got to place the human touch where it belongs, and that's on each other.
Where do you see the country going in the next 5 years?
I am so excited. And okay, I just gave you an example about Gen Z. Let me tell you the good news about Gen Z. And you mentioned this, Bishop. You know, they are so energetic, and unlike previous generations, these folks are chasing the bag. And not only are they chasing the bag, they're doing whatever they need to do. I have so many students who are finance majors, and you talk about speaking the language. They are speaking the language. So many of my kids want to go into private equity. So many of my kids want to go into personal finance and wealth management. And they don't care what it takes in order to get the AI badges and to go ahead and get the certifications, because they knew not only they're going to make the difference in somebody else's life, but they're going to carve out the life and the existence that they want. But what I am seeing, to be more specific and answering your question, in 1965, before his death, in which Malcolm X knew, he was traveling the country because he was exposing readers to his book, the autobiography of Malcolm X. And he was really on a book tour. And I shared this story because one time, and I forgot exactly where it was, but it was a biracial audience. And after he got through speaking, a young woman came up, and she happened to be white. And she says, Mr. Malcolm, I love your remarks and this, that, and everything. Is there anything that I can do to help you with your movement? And Malcolm didn't even look up, and he was wiping his glasses, and he was collecting his notes, and he was about to walk out the facility, and he told her no. Well, later on in life, Malcolm brought that subject up, and he made an addendum as if he could talk to that woman again. He know exactly what he would tell her, and I want to tell all the listeners right now. There are 4 things, according to Malcolm X, that we need to do. Number 1, we need to invest in Black businesses. We need to buy Black and invest in Black businesses. Number 2, we need to invest in Black financial institutions. There's only a handful of Black banks out there. What's the last time I looked? You got less than 30 Black banks out there on the horizon? You got less than 250 Black credit unions? Bishop, these are small banks. So if they're small banks, you know the type of, depositors, the type of customers they have.
You're right.
Small investments, small deposits, and multiple withdrawals. You can't make any money off of that. So number 1, invest in Black businesses. Number 2, invest in Black financial institutions. Number 3, I want Fortune 500 America. I want to go to Fortune 500 America, and I want Fortune 500 America to make a commitment to place 10% of their annual earnings in Black banks. Just 10%, and leave it there over a 60-month, 5-year period so we can benefit from compounding interest. I'm not asking you, remember I said access to capital? I'm not asking Wells Fargo and Chase Manhattan Bank and JP Morgan to do that. I know right now you haven't done it in the past, and I'm not going to tell you to do it in the future. Let us do it. Give us the money so we'll take the investment. And then number 4, last but not least, I want you to take, there's 109 HBCUs under the wing. I want these Fortune 500 companies, okay, to pick one of these 109 HBCUs and give them the resources that they need. Why? Because out of these 109 HBCUs, Bishop, that's our Black middle class. That's where our Black lawyers are coming from. That's where our Black doctors are coming from. That's where our Black pharmacists are coming from. I'm not knocking PWIs. All my degrees are from PWIs. My undergrad degree, University of Oklahoma. My doctorate, Northwestern University. I never had a Black teacher in my life. But two things about me. Number one, no one is ever going to tell me how to teach a Black child. And though, I've never attended an HBCU, I've been predominantly Black my entire life. So take, one of these 109 HBCUs, because out of these 109, there's 330,000 students, and that's all there are, Bishop. 330,000 Black kids at these 109 HBCUs.
Out of 40 million people.
Exactly. And what do you know about, where did these kids come from? 40% of first generation. 40% of these 330,000 kids come from households in which their parents can't even give them a dime towards their education. But you go ahead and unleash them 4 years later, and they are front and center in the Black middle class. These are the folks with their advanced degrees that you want to guide and lead and to raise the next generation. And we don't give them their props. Right. So those are the point of references that we've got to do. Number one, Black businesses. Number two, Black financial institutions. Come on, corporate America. And I'm an old corporate hack. When I got out of college, I was the first Black male in the rotational program for Texas Instruments in Dallas, Texas. Number two, I was the first Black male in the rotational program for SmithKline and French Pharmaceuticals in Philadelphia. And then my last 3 years of corporate America, I was a consultant. So come on, I'm corporate America. I'm not asking you for anything but to take your investments and give us a fighting chance. Why? Because you had an opportunity to do it in 1952, 1953, and you did not do it with the GI Bill. When the Marshall Plan, and I'm asking you to do what Roosevelt failed to do. In 1943, Bishop, President Roosevelt conceded that World War II was coming to an end and the United States was winning. And he said, this is my opportunity to go ahead and manufacture a middle class. Because prior to the GI Bill, there was no middle class. He created it with the GI Bill. So when these 1.2 million Black servicemen and women came home, my father was one of them. My father dodged bullets in Europe for 4 years, as well as all of my uncles. My father marched, down the streets of Paris under the Champs-Élysées and came home, and he was denied benefits. Now this is a time to hit the reset button. This is your second chance to get it right. Do what you didn't do in the late 1940s and early 1950s. And I'm not here to get into politics, but you got a man in the Oval Office right now. His father was not a wealthy man. His father made his wealth because he built homes, and then Roosevelt gave him a subsidy to do it. And that's how he created wealth and denied home ownership to people of color. So you do whatever you want to do. But I'm saying this is an opportunity to hit the reset button and get it right.
You talked about investing in Black banks, and we have lost over 100 Black banks. It's down to a minutia, a fragment of what it was at one time. And you talk about investing in Black banks, and I think it's been a very important subject for us to take on. The truth of the matter is, according to the latest Gallup polls, only 53% of African Americans are invested in anything remotely, including stocks, compared to the 70% that do. You have an opportunity to invest in other Black business, even if you didn't put it into black banks, and you should put it into black banks, but it doesn't stop there. You're investing in black businesses as well, and ought to, and we need to have resources that make that possible. Instead of buying their products, we also need to subsidize their income by creating grants and creating economic streams for them to grow and scale their business and invest in those business and become owners in that business. It's not enough to wear their products if you don't invest in the business that helps them to scale their business and to grow. Opening up doors and creating your own ecosystem for finances and the well-being that is so important, that gives us a sense of security. But our problem is, and we have good reason because we have been burned so many times, we don't trust anybody. We don't trust the doctor. We don't trust the church. We don't trust the educational institution. It reminds me often of Katrina. It was when the levees began to give way that the flood reached its maximum fierceness, and we began to lose the greatest amount of lives. Our levees are at the breaking point, from church to communities to marriages to educational institutions. Our levees are shaking, and there is a dam of destruction on the other side of it, a destruction so paramount and so overwhelming that some statisticians say that by the year 2050, the median income of African Americans will be at zero. For me, that's very frightening. Several of these we have talked about. Education is a part of it. Economics is a part of it. Entrepreneurship is a part of it. All these things come together to create an ecosystem where we have a better opportunity at upward mobility. The Africans are doing it. After all that they have been through colonialism, if they can do it, I believe we can do it too. And we can learn from each other, and we can help each other to be more vibrant, to be more powerful, to create trade between the businesses, and to learn from each other. Them having faced colonialism, us having faced slavery, have left us behind, but not left out. We have an opportunity to make up the space, but we are the people that we've been waiting for. What's it going to take?
Yeah, that is a great question. There are opportunities to invest in other businesses, and particularly black businesses and the like. But Bishop, that's going to take some time, and it's going to take a mindset shift. And I remember when I was with Henry Parks, when I interviewed him in his Baltimore facility, and he had a sausage business. He had a manufacturing concern.
Right.
Exactly. And he had hundreds of employees all throughout, the supply chain and mechanism. And there I am in his office, and I almost asked a similar question. And he said, "Young man, in one hand, I have a dream. In the other hand, I have an obstacle. Which one grabs your attention?" Well, we have got to raise our level of vision. And instead of looking at the obstacles, instead of looking at the problems, we have got to develop a strategy, a can-do strategy. And Bishop, this is not an MBA class, but there are 4 elements of strategy. And the wealth creator and the entrepreneur always chooses number 4. And when you think of strategy, you think of number 1, what's the worst that can happen? Number 2, what's the best that can happen? Number 3, what's likely to happen? But number 4, the wealth creator and the entrepreneur always choose number 4. Am I willing to tolerate the worst in order to achieve the best? That's the mindset shift that we have got to take place, and be hands-on. And, in terms of conducting due diligence, find out everything that you can about this company, about this industry. Because no matter what business, I don't care if you're a corporate climber, I don't care if you're an entrepreneur, there are 2 jobs and 2 businesses that you are working in right now. The job or the business that you're running right now, and the job or the business that it's going to become in 5 years. We learned that from COVID because we couldn't think 5 years out. COVID forced that on us. If you're only working on one aspect of it, you're not going to be in business much longer. And what is the proof, Bishop? Take the Fortune 500 of 2025. and place it by the Fortune 500 of 2015, you won't recognize 40% of the names on that list. Well, where are those companies now? Don't remember the .com? They're all gone.
Right.
They all went poof. Why? They didn't answer question number 4. So that's a mindset shift that we have got to grow into and we have got to lean into.
We started out working with formerly incarcerated inmates, and we still continue to do that. It started out as a local scale as the Texas Offenders Reentry Initiative, and now we're going more global, more national with it so that we can be more inclusive. But even up under the Tory program, we were able to reach 40,000 inmates with our program, helping them with mental health, helping them to get better educated, GEDs, whatsoever they needed. But most importantly, we knocked on the doors of CEOs creating job opportunities that these people were able to get hired that normally would not be hired. A lot of their records had been expunged, and we gave them a fighting chance at pulling themselves up and work through all of their issues and their problems and their insecurities and, quite frankly, their fears. It's frightening to go from a culture of incarceration to a culture of a corporation and feel at home and feel comfortable when you don't see people who can relate to your past. You become intimidated about your future and where you're going. But that is a daunting task, and we had to be able to hire people, and we had to be able to train people, and there's certain requirements that have to be met. And if churches are going to take on that task, along with many sociological groups that are going to do it, they're going to need resources to do it. And people don't understand that the resources are not for the pews or the suits or the preacher. The resources are to extend the brand to be able to have impact. You cannot have impact if you don't have income. The reason recidivism is declining on one hand and the pipeline between the person to prison is starting to grow again is that a lot of the progress that we have made has been rolled back, and we're having to do our first works over again as we have lost some of the influence and the funding that came through DEI, that came through sensitivity of corporations who had an obligation to meet their ESG requirements. All of that has changed now. And without the influence of faith-based institutions, educational institutions as well, and the development of the family again, so that we can get one income, two incomes meeting the mortgages and let the mortgage be one mortgage. What do you think the churches can do to help increase our family skills, our educational skills, our preparation skills, and our cultural skills so that we don't take street language into corporate opportunity? To really bring about a real change, how do we wake them up to what they can do for the community to make a change and not destroy themselves trying to do it?
Yeah, that rips my heart out. And I'm just like you, Bishop. I'm in prisons and in jails, frequently talking to the men. And that's an issue that we have got to place front and center back on the table, getting these inmates out, getting them trained, getting them developed, closing that gap, making them earners and making them breadwinners and assuming the role back in their family. Because we don't know the information. If you took all the Black men who are currently incarcerated in maximum security facilities, all the way from San Quentin, California to Attica in New York, and you add in all the Black men currently on parole, and you took all those Black men and confined them to one central location, that one central location will be among the 10th largest cities in the nation, of nothing but incarcerated and formerly incarcerated Black men. Larger than Miami, larger than Charlotte, larger than Memphis and Nashville. So we have got to place that front and center. And again, going back to mindset, getting these men developed, getting them the books, the resources that they need. I'm a pen pal with several Black men who are incarcerated, particularly one in the Midwest. Won't tell you the facilities in, but he's been in there. He and I have been pen pals since my first book has been released, more than 30 years. And we write, and he calls me, and we talk. But the issue is that, hey, listen, as Jesse Jackson says, keep hope alive. But we got to do more than hope. I mean, we got to make a difference. We got to put plans in place. We got to give them the processes. We got to give them, the programs in which they could develop where they can make better life choices.
This is my fear, and this is my concern. The emerging countries, the third world countries, are often defined by the loss of middle class, and we are steadily losing our middle class, not just in the Black race, but across the board. Our middle class, our average everyday worker is losing opportunities. The pay scale is less, and the job opportunities are less, and we're finding ourselves in a precarious situation. The projection is by 2050, as I said earlier, that the median income of African Americans will be at zero, and that is frightening to me. Yeah, these few years between now and 2050, we have to move quickly to build a network that catches those who are falling through the cracks, who have had to put their homes up for sale, who have had to downsize, who have become homeless, who once had a job and once had influence. We have people living on the street who have education and have degrees but still lack opportunities. Access to opportunities is very, very important. Exposure to the right people in the right place. And I have been going from talking to CEOs and corporate America to talking to people on the street, trying to bridge the gap and make the connection that makes it possible for us to live up to our ancestors' dream and live the life that they fought for and died for and bled for, so that we can make a difference in the world. And we have to find a way to do it. We may not be the technicians or the engineers. We may be the plumber. We may be the electrician. We may be the bricklayer. But that's a business too, and a very lucrative business. And sometimes we leap over those businesses trying to find something that is corporately appropriate, and we don't understand that those are strong businesses, and their pay scales often exceed the pay scales of the jobs that we're applying for. There are absolutely ways in which we can find some way to lift up the middle class and salvage our communities and be able to salvage the country by being more concerned not just about the top 1%, or acquiescing to those who are at the bottom, but building up the middle class until there are less people at the bottom. I grew up in a neighborhood till recently. I can't hardly think of a house that didn't have a father in it on the street I lived on. It was normal for us to have families, whether we were falling out or getting along or playing basketball in the basketball court. We were connected. There was a cohesiveness. There was not this dearth and lack of men in the home that protected, that guided, that brought in an income, that had influence, that shoveled snow, that fixed cars, that got us back on the road. I don't see that happening like it used to happen. Those fathers are gone now. But down the line, many of them are in prison, and they have become untouchable, unreachable, untenable. They have found themselves in critical situation. We've got to go back and get our brothers and our uncles and our fathers and our grandfathers out of the prison system and into the productive system of being able to produce something. Not what do you buy, what do you produce? For the very first thing that the Bible says that God said to man was to be fruitful. And we can't answer that question. We can tell you what we're wearing. We can tell you what we're driving. We can tell you what we're living in and the square footage of our home. But we cannot often be able to rehearse what we are actually contributing, what we are being fruitful at, and what we are doing. I want to see a fighting chance for our fathers, our brothers, and our sons, to stand shoulder to shoulder to our sisters who are doing an amazing job, who are getting the degrees and getting the master's degrees and getting the corporate job, but now they're being attacked too. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of souls to heal and mend. We've got a lot of families that need skills to learn how to work together when everything is not going right. We've got a lot of people that need to understand when to get out of a relationship and when to fight for a relationship. Dr. Kimbro, I have to confess, I've taken up a lot of your time.
Hey, you can take up as much time as you want, Bishop. I love you, my brother. I want to thank you for all that you've done in my career. And I go back to the first time that we met, and you were so gracious. You answered every question that I asked, and I am just eternally grateful to be in your orbit and the difference that you have made not only in my life, but the lives of millions of folks and people that you would never know that you made a difference in their life.
I want to thank you, Dr. Kimbro, for being so generous with your time and your education, your influence, and the level of your experience, and how fruitful you have continued to be in being part of the answer and not part of the problem. You don't just rehearse the problem. You also bring to us solutions that if we will take heed to those solutions, we'll be able to make a tremendous change. I want to thank our listening audience, our viewing audience, who will avail themselves of the expertise and the opportunity that we are affording you through this podcast, that you may be able to reach higher heights and deeper depths and reach your goals, and more importantly, teach your children and start them on a trajectory of upward mobility. It starts early. My first passbook came to me, my mother gave it to me when I was 8 years old as a Christmas gift. She didn't wait till I was 18 and then start trying to calibrate and teach me to appreciate commerce, commodities, and economics. She started when I was 8 and running a lawnmower and passing papers and cutting grass. Those sorts of things start early. Let's start today. We cannot wait another day. 2050 is on our heels, and we cannot let it catch us with our work undone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. And most of all, we thank you for making a difference, because you do, even if it's just you do make a difference. You change the stats. You change the game. You change how people see us by using what you've got to get you to where you need to be. Thanks again. We enjoyed it.